All right, welcome back to the special extended online version of In Conclusion. Still here with the members, the potential presidents of MATT. So we're going to start with Sheldon. You were listening to everything else you were saying, and we were talking during the break about skepticism. Journalists are skeptical of what MATT has done or what MATT can do. How do we fix that?
Okay, now, we have all established thus far, we've all agreed that there is a disconnect within the media. We've established that. So how do we fix that? I remember I was speaking at a youth club function.
Yes, last week. Yeah.
That was last week, right? And they were asking me to speak about journalism. So I made a point, I said, okay, what do you consider as rewarding in journalism? So I mentioned some stories in the past. I mentioned about a woman who, a child was so very ill and living in this area, very poor and so forth. Another woman was 500 pounds and she had no help and cars would abandon her, family abandoned. I said that is a reward. I think the media, we've been fed a false ideas about what journalism is today. It's about the money. The passion is now the money. We need to. I don't
think anybody goes into journalism for money.
Well,
I hope not.
Well, they get fooled.
Somebody lied to them.
They get fooled when they enter. But the point is, there's the hunger for journalism is not there anymore. And that needs to return. And the thing is, because of that hunger for
Can I ask how as MATT you're going to do that?
Yeah.
Well, let me just put it this way. We mentioned about journalists attacking journalists, they're skeptical of journalists and so forth, right? We need to bring trust back, and it starts in society. In society itself, there's no trust to it. There's no trust anywhere you go. Not in society. If society itself, the better society, there's no trust, then there'll be no trust in our associations. There'll be no trust anywhere it will actually.
So this is a life mission. You have to bring trust back to society. You have to bring trust. Save MATT.
I believe trust on a whole.
Yes. Well,
well,
first of all, I think in the context of what we're discussing here, the executive has to trust each other. If you don't have a cohesive executive,
how would they do that?
Well, I think one way of doing it is by getting an executive in place and looking at the election structure that surrounds MATT, considering slates, as opposed to having disparate executives where two people might end up on the executive who have a genuine hate for each other.
Right, and therefore they need to start trusting each other. Now, how do they do that?
No, but these are human beings.
Not trust in terms of they need to love each other, but again, that mutual respect.
I have been in environments on executives where there is no room for that. There are people, we talk about journalists attacking other journalists. Right. The hate is real out there for some people. And if you end up with an executive of people who don't get along, then you're not going anywhere. You're going to crumble.
Fine.
That is a very important point, but again it comes back to longer term questions of organizational development. All the issues of the Constitution, the modus operandi, all of these are matters that must be taken back to the membership as we move forward for reassessment of the Constitution, reassessment about our internal structure, as you rightly point out, difficulties with the executive, and very important is the voice of the membership. While you're saying that the experience is 7 people will get there and very little is heard after from the membership. Unless this changes, and these 25 people, in my view, who have put themselves up for nomination, are brought together and engaged, we must begin with what we have. You suggested that I was idealistic. I took that as a compliment, Sterling, because hope shines eternal. Because at the end of the day, we are Trinidadians and Tobagonians. We understand each other. And to a large extent, we must, because this institution, this association is so important to both the profession and, most importantly, our public, who are relying on us for accurate information with integrity. We need to keep speaking with our people. Irvin mentioned education. It's all part of it. But as I said, in the short term, stabilization, re-establishment of the organization, and as we move forward, the wider question of organizational development and training for members of MATT, not only in media and journalism, but in the wider skill set of organizational development, the marketing, many of the complex areas, because this is a pool of talent we have to draw on. So in the 21st century, journalists can't only be writing and editing and recording, they must also have a fair grasp about organizational management.
All right, Irving, is Irving there? No, we lost him again. All right, but I'll give everybody the final words, 30 seconds. Sure. Why should we vote for you, Sheldon?
All right. Now, one thing I've learned being the head of news at WIN TV is that I also my reporters bring with them their personal, how should I say, their challenges that they have. And I think what we need to understand is that journalists, they're people, and they come with challenges. MATT need to be in a place where they are like a family to journalists. It's like a home. It must feel like a home, not just as this organization with a whip over their head and just, as they say, reacting every minute. It must be a home for journalists where they feel comfortable to address their issues so they don't have to resort to going on blast on social media.
All right, still in 30 seconds. Why should we vote for you?
I mean, I don't know why you're going to vote for me. I can't promise you anything, I'll tell you that much. But I do know of a legacy of an organization that once had a scholarship fund, that held annual awards, that had fundraising media-based fashion shows that attracted scores and scores of attention and people. And so I have a sense of what MATT is capable of doing. I, like Sheldon, would like to think that going in with the executive, it is not my vision that we are here to execute, but our vision. And starting with the hour of the executive and the hope and prayer that we can, if elected, get along and work cohesively to advance the organization as far as we could.
Fran, 30 seconds.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Irvin. I know we're just down to the last few minutes. Again, I would like to encapsulate that I would see my role and the role of an executive, if people would like to join that executive, I would see this as very much a facilitatory kind of executive. The advocacy of press freedom and freedom of expression. We have many, many talented people who can form an advisory group within it. I don't see entirely that the executive needs to be the ones entirely doing the press releases. Obviously, everything would have to pass through the executive for final release. But there must be ways in which the intellectual and talent capacity can be drawn on. A strategic plan, budgeting, associating, fundraising internationally and locally and regionally. I would like to be, again, maybe a bit idealistic steering, but I would like to think that at the end of 2 years, we could leave the association in better financial footing and with a secretariat in place, even if it's a shared secretariat with a like-minded association, as is done in Jamaica. And I think we must be optimistic.
All right, that's it. Thanks very much. The special online edition of In Conclusion. MATT elections are April 11th, so be there and get out and vote. In Conclusion is every Saturday night at 7:30. I'm Kejan Haynes. Good evening.